I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to Highlights Motorsport.
He's going to break his 6th world title.
Oh, he's done it! And look at these two go! He's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done.
What a race it's been!
Hello and welcome back to Bahrain for the opening round of the 2023 FSR Pro Championship. My name is Edward Hunter. I'm alongside William Chadwick, and of course we are looking to see who will succeed Cosmo Prosciutto as a Pro Champion this year. So Prosciutto goes up to the World Championship, leaving a big vacancy here in Pro with a whole host of drivers and teams looking to succeed him and Royal Blue, not least Royal Blue themselves, to return to maintain their title. But we're, of course, sponsored by VCO eSports and a host of other partners too. 46 laps of action ahead of us, but before that, a qualifying session. So Will Chadwick alongside me. Will, welcome to FSR. How are you looking forward to your first pro race and the first pro race of the season, of course?
Well, I'm very excited, Ed. I can't wait to see the action here today. I think it's not commentated on much Formula racing before. I'm really excited to see how the drivers deal with battery systems, DRS, all the strategy that we're going to see throughout the race, and see who can get their title campaign off to a great start.
Yeah, well, they'll all be hoping to, but only a couple are probably going to succeed, I imagine. But if the Academy was anything to go by, then we're in for a very strategic, very exciting race filled with lots of overtakes, lots of brilliant strategy calls, lots of rear tyres wearing out and people spinning out and struggling under braking. So that's going to be quite a lot of excitement for people to watch. And these guys, of course, in Pro, all looking for that chance to move up to the World Championship to prove themselves at the very highest level. A lot of them have moved up from Academy last season. Let's take a brief look then, if we've got time, at the calendar for the season to come. Of course, we're here in Bahrain today before we move on to Barcelona on the 11th of June, Montreal on the 25th of June, Silverstone for the British Grand Prix on the 16th of July. Then we go to Imola in Italy on the 6th of August. Then Spa-Francorchamps on the 20th of August. Monza on the 10th of September. Suzuka on the 1st of October, which, by the way, is the day before my birthday, for those interested. Then it is Sao Paulo, ending the season on the 15th of October, where we will know for sure who's going to lift that Pro title, the all-important Pro title in both the teams and drivers championship. Well, a lot of great tracks in the offing. But Bahrain is where we start, and it's a tricky one, that's for sure.
Yeah, the Bahrain International Circuit has a lot of interesting features, of course. One of the newest circuits made, somewhat in like 2011, I believe. And you've got a lot of slow speed sections.
2004, I believe.
2004? It's been around longer than I think. I remember when they used to use the even longer layout that was really confusing. 2011
was the one year it didn't host a race due to the Arab Spring uprising, but we won't cover that in too much detail here. Anyway, anyway, sorry, I interrupted you completely, Will. Sorry.
No, it's okay, but like you say, it's got a lot of interesting sections. I think it's a good test for a car. You know, you've got a lot of slow speed sections where you've got to really get the traction right. I expect to see the drivers short shifting and trying to really protect those rear tyres in the race. But it does look like, from what I've seen of some onboards, that you're going to be able to attack the tyre quite hard in the qualifying stage that we'll see very shortly. And it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers switch between these two things, because going between qualifying, which we're about to see, and racing is quite a different skill, and it's interesting to see how the drivers adapt.
Exactly. It's one thing to get it done a single lap, but quite another across nearly 50 laps or whatever it will be. So there's Viktor Ivanov, finally pronouncing his name correctly. Ivanov, of course, who finished third in the championship last season, took, I think, 2 or 3 wins at Matsusaka and, of course, Brazil to end the season. So here was an outside shot at the driver's title, but lost out to Cosmo Prosciutto and Jukka-Pekka Laulu for Royal Blue, both of whom move up to the World Championship. So by process of elimination, you would have to say that Ivanov goes in as one of the favourites then for the Pro title in 2023, given that his 2 main competitors from last season are out of the picture, so to speak, and moved on to pastures new. But NetRex, of course, brilliant team, have been in the championship since inception in 2001, and alongside Ivanov is, I believe, Cass Rietveld and Liam Howard in the, I believe this is the NX27 squad, so named in tribute to former driver and team owner Alessio Campos, of course, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but is remembered, is commemorated in with his number 27 and that lovely orange X representing NetRex, the team he so loved and did so well for over the years.
So you see the driver building up now, Ivanov, for his first flying attempt. I always think that when you go for an initial flying attempt in one of these runs, you want to get a nice banker in. It's good to have that baseline to where you feel able to then push further onwards. If you're not able to set a nice baseline for you to go on to, I feel like it can really affect later in the qualifying session. The pressure can build. When you're the favourite, it either, pressure makes diamonds. It either makes you perform even better, or maybe you crumble a little bit under the pressure. I know which side I tend to fall on that, but we won't talk about that today. But it's going to be interesting to see how Ivanov gets this initial banker underway, and initially, so far, looks to be quite a clean lap.
Yeah, it's a good thing there's no pressure on commentators, is there, Will? But anyway, Bulgarian Ivanov continues on his lap. It is Sevet, in the royal blue, who sets the purple first sector, but it's still early days on these laps, so we don't know for sure that that's going to be a pole time for the royal blue driver, but we'll stick with Ivanov then. Through turn 11 he goes, such a fast entry as well. We saw a couple of people trying to overtake there in Academy, and it not always working out perfectly. They have to back out at the last minute, but you will see down the straights, especially the hybrid system. It's one of the first ever FSR championships that's used a hybrid car. I think one of the very few rFactor championships that does, for open wheel at least anyway, because I know the hypercars in Le Mans have got a hybrid system on them, but of course they've got 120 kilowatts of power to use down these straights. Ivanov uses it to good effect, but it is Salagianis actually who sets a slightly faster time in the ground effect, the Academy champion of 2022, setting in a pretty good first time at the first rounds. Here's Sevet. He crosses the line only 11th. Oh no, it was only 11th fastest. Sorry, it just cut to Salagianis and confused me for a second there. But anyway, Will, that's a pretty good lap from the Greek driver. Yeah, he's Greek. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the initial banker that we're going to see. Times are pretty close at the top, but I remember seeing in practice that we did see Ivanov go at least 0.2 of a second quicker than what he's done here. Getting that banker in, only 1,300ths away, or 13 thousandths away from pole position. It's a good baseline to start with, but Zolgianis on that provisional pole position, as we are nearly getting to halfway through the session, is certainly a good confidence boost going into the latter stages of this qualifying session. But I do expect to see a better time from Ivanov coming soon.
Yeah, and there's Simon Frelich as well, also within less than 300ths of a second, I think, separate Salagianis, Ivanov, and Simon Frelich. Now, Frelich, of course, who I commentated on last time in FS1 in GPPWC Formula Sprint 1, where he unfortunately lost the championship lead after a couple of difficult races, but a very, very quick driver, Simon Frelich, and showing it at the moment with, it's of course, somewhat confusing, by the way, the two NetRex drivers. We've got Viktor Ivanov and then Ivan Leonov. So a bit of a tongue twister first time out, of course, as we ride on board with British driver Joshua Hamilton in the TX3, who, of course, is technically he's a joint ERC Formula E champion of, I think, season 5 with House Sonneveld. They were equal on points, and then the final round got cancelled. So, and of course, he won the championship last season in ERC Formula E as well. So very good on street tracks, very good endurance racing. Now looking to prove his chops at FSR, so jumping right in at the pro level. Let's see what this lap is then for Hamilton. One corner left to negotiate for the black and green TX3 machine. The French squad sliding into that final corner as you exhale there, Will. But towards the line he goes. What's it going to be for Joshua Hamilton? Where does this put him on the grid? 20th position, so not particularly, it's a start. We can do a little bit better from that though, Joshua, hopefully. Let's see, he's about half a second behind Wesley Bukow, who himself has not had a great opening lap, as we cut to Oldenmenger. Now, Will, you want to hear this about Oldenmenger? He's, of course, World Championship was in the World Championship last season, where he had a couple of decent races to 13th, where he would overtake Adam Rainey on the final lap usually. But unfortunately, more successful in pro though, winner of the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix for TCS Off Racing, who of course are now Visceral Esports and are making their own World Championship debut, and I think their pro debut. So Paul Augustani is in this race. I think he was near the back of the grid actually. But here comes Oldenmenger then. So he's going to take that World Championship experience with him to pro and try and use it to win the pro title. I don't think he's ever won the pro. I think fourth in the standings was his fourth or third. I think he was third in 2021. That's his best finish. There we go. This is all from memory, by the way. As Oldenmenger goes sixth fastest behind Leonov, who set a purple middle sector then. So let's go through the final corner then, Will, and see what he can do.
Yeah, as you see, coming down to the final corner here at the Bahrain International Circuit, Ivanov looking to improve pretty quick through that second section.
This is Leonov.
Leonov, sorry. There you go. So it's already confusing us. But like you say, coming to the line, and I think that's going to be a little bit of an improvement. 97,000.
Yeah, he didn't improve in the final sector, crucially.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it was that final corner that made the difference, but it might have been the penultimate couple of corners. But yeah, Leonov, of course, looking to... I think he is actually another guy who was in the World Championship last season, if I remember correctly, for, funnily enough, the second Netrex team, where he finished fifth in Imola at the opening race of the season. Then on had a pretty difficult season, although and what impressed me the most was he had a massive crash at Spa-Francorchamps, where he lost the front left tire, I think. Managed to get back to the pit lane and still finish the race, got some decent points in like 13th or something like that. So that really shows he should never give up in Formula Sim racing. As we look at Gianni Lianos, former Ground Effect driver, now he joins Netrex here in Pro and looking to secure a first podium of the season. Second in the moment to Zalagianis, his old teammate, and only less than a 10th behind him then in this qualifying session. So Zalagianis, he's only gotten faster. And in a way, not surprising, the Academy champion has been able to stamp his authority then so far on this quali session with 1 minute 40 left on the clock, Will.
Yeah, so we see around the final corner, I believe to start a lap, the DRS opens up and we're coming down towards sector number 1. You're looking for what seems to be like a 0.3 maybe in the first sector would be good. I saw a lot of people struggling to improve on their first runs through this first sector. Perhaps people being fueled for maybe 2 laps here, or maybe giving it 2 goes, depending on how we're looking at things. Down towards this corner here, going to see a decent apex. Car seems to respond nicely, getting on the traction the outside, making sure not to go over track limits. Through the fast sweeping section, it's almost flat out through here. Got to see the car's body language looks very positive, very well, and that is a 4-0, so pretty good through the first sector. You know, improving on the previous best is Lianos. So down in towards the really, really tricky braking zone here. Going to be in about second gear on the exit. Nicely done. Seems good. Opens the DRS. Potentially getting on the boost button as well here. Of course, these cars made in-house by FSR. So that is always really nice to see. And it's the first car, I believe, that's been developed by them. Coming down to come and cut this second sector. Let's see how it is. Not really an improvement. I think that's around about a 10th off the best we've seen in this session. So not sure if we're going to see really that much of an improvement from Lianos here, but this final sector could be deciding. Depends how well it goes. Car seems to react well, and to the line, we'll see if that can be an improvement here for Lianos.
Here we go then. 6 seconds left on the clock then, so he won't get another run. That's it for Gianni Lianos, the group driver. Will start no better than second. Here is Ivanov, though, for NX27, looking to get onto the front row. He's not far away. He had a pretty good time in the first sector, but Zalagianis is going a tenth faster. Ivanov sets a purple middle sector then, so can he get himself onto provisional pole and take the fight to George Zalagianis? Ground Effect or Netrex take the first pole position of the season. Absolutely crucial in terms of who starts where on the grid in this race. Looks like Christoph Zazel, has set a purple first sector. Ivanov just misses out by 0.038 of a second. And here is Zazel in that looks like an independent entry, I think. Because it's Race Clutch, of course, in the bright red livery. Sorry, it's a new team, so I need to get to grips with it. But of course, they're making their debut in World Championship as well. And Zazel has left him really late here, but he's setting 2 purple sectors. He is flying out there, Will.
Yeah, this looks to be a fantastic lap from Zizelle, the race clutch driver. Of course, we see them represent across many different sim platforms. And can he put it onto pole position here? Coming to the line, what's the time going to be? Oh,
He's done
position. Whoa. That lap is
127.7.
amazing.
Wow, he was not only on pole, but smashed it by 2.5 tenths there as Vagapov messes up the final sector, and it's an unlucky 13. That'll be his starting position on the grid. But wow, Zizelle left it late, came out of nowhere, and waited for the track to be its absolute best to set a blistering lap here in Bahrain. And now Zalagianis has got a fight on his hands.
He's just blown everyone out of the water. That's an unbelievable qualifying time there from Zizelle. And here you see your final order. Zizelle on pole position with a 27.766, over 2.5 tenths of a second ahead of Zalagianis in second. Ivanov, who we were talking about a lot at the start of our proceedings, is in third, followed by Lianis, Lenov, Munier, Frelich, Eres, Nizov, and Olden Menger. Your second set of your back to the 20th place here is Savet in 11th, Burbanov in 12th, Vagapov, Howard, Fletcher, Chatzia Pantelis, Lehook, Mancini, and Merville. We've got a couple drivers to go. Yep, the final three, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. We've got Hamilton, Tucson, and Augustus Lane.
Sure, I thought I'd let you do the starting grid. I can do it when we do the warm-up lap if you want. Just wanted to let you struggle with the pronunciation.
Yeah, struggle with the pronunciations. It's a commentator's job, you know. We've actually got a quota per year of how many names we have to mispronounce. So if you have any complaints, please direct them straight to my Discord DMs, and I'll be happy to attempt to pronounce them even worse in the future.
It's like I say, they've known each other for quite a while, and they only have to know their own names, really, and there's the guy in front and the guy behind, as we have to know all 23 of them, and all from various different nations as well. But it's brilliant to see such variety in the field, so many different teams and drivers. And Race Clutch, of course, on their debut, starting on pole with Christophe Zizelle, and the French team, of course, who are linked with Alpine, of course, so that's why you may have heard of them before in several other series. But they'll be looking to stamp their authority. Only a one-car entry as well. And I think it's interesting when you see a one-car entry really excelling, because they haven't got a teammate to bounce off of, to borrow a setup from, or anything like that. I don't think Race Culture got a sister team in here. Well, there aren't really any sister teams, but maybe a couple of the NetRex ones. But and Iris, Royal Blue, etc. have a couple of extra team also with the 4 drivers essentially. But yeah, it's very rare you see a one-car team do that well. So Zizelle, the real test, of course, is going to be the race proper, and what tyres is he going to start on, how long is he going to get that first stint to last, because this Pro especially is where we really see strategy become such an important factor in terms of who's going to fight for victory and who's going to be mired a little bit further down in the pack.
Yeah, so like we were just about to talk about, for this race, we've got the C2 tyre available, the C3 and the C4. Of course, we're taking from the roster that you see in the Formula 1 World Championship that, you get to watch every weekend, and the drivers will be able to choose between those. It's going to be interesting to see. We've got a slightly longer race than we had in Academy. I believe it's somewhere like 46 laps, I believe, somewhere around
Correct,
that level.
yes.
Look at that. Bang on. And it's going to be interesting to see what type of strategies come into play. Now, I'm not sure what strategies we're going to see here today, but I think we're not going to see the same strategy from every driver. I think we're going to see quite a few people gamble maybe on softs at the back to try and make up some positions early. We might see some people near the front going on to like C4, for example, going on to a harder tyre, or if that's not correct, maybe the other way around. I don't know. We're going on to a harder tyre and just trying to go a bit longer in the race, maintain that track position, and then worry about maybe the hard chargers who are going for a more aggressive strategy later on in the race. But I'm sure it's going to be interesting, and I can't wait for that race to get underway.
Yeah, the interesting thing in the Academy race was the hard tyre was very viable here. We saw Esteban Single actually start very interestingly on the softs, make a really great start, tried to build a gap. Unfortunately, the softs died towards the end of his first stint, and then he switched quite early on for the hards and was able to get to the end in a sick position. So it's a strategy that maybe wasn't ideal. I think maybe a lot of people are probably going to learn from Academy and start on the mediums, especially up front. But we might see a couple gamble on the softs at some point. More likely, I think the hard tyre is going to be that's going to be the C4 or is it the C2? I can't remember.
See, now you're doing it. Now you have no idea either. So we have at least two of us without the idea. But at
I
least we're
believe
going to get
C2
the
is the hard one. I think it's C2 is the hard one. C4 is the soft one. Anyway, we're about to get everyone on the grid, and there we go. Cezelle shows up very early, and has to wait for Zalagianis and co to populate. But Cezelle eager to get going then in Race Clutch. He's a one-man band, and he's here to party, isn't he?
Like you say, we've seen Race Clutch across many sims, and I think it's a real statement to go out there and be a lone driver without maybe not a lot of setup knowledge potentially, and put it on pole by that much. We're going to see them go away for the formation lap here, and I'll let you take the race grid.
Sure thing. So, on pole position then, it's Christoph Cezelle for Race Clutch, ahead of George Zalagianis for Grand Effect Sim Racing. And don't worry about these pictures, they're of the Academy field for some reason. Victor Ivanov lines up third, ahead of Gianni Lianos. Then it is Ivan Leonov in fifth, ahead of Iris's Loic Moynier. Then it is Simon Frelick for Royal Blue in seventh, Michael Ayers in eighth for Valet. Then Kak Panizio lines up ninth with Tom Oldenmenger, rounding out the top 10 for Burst. Then Patrick Savet lines up 11th for Royal Blue, ahead of his teammate Stoyan Barbikov. Peter Vagapov will line up 13th after that late mistake in the TX3, ahead of Iris's Wesley Buchhout. Then it is Liam Howard 15th, Sergio Fletcher 16th. Behind them, George Chatsapantelis will line up 17th for Netrex. Then it is Alex Laho 18th, Mirko Mancini 19th, Kevin Morville 20th. Joshua Hamilton will start 21st on his debut in FSR. Then it is Matt Toussaint 22nd, and Paul Augustlani up the rear for Visceral Esports.
And the drivers halfway through the lap, getting those tyres warm. We see the medium tyre selection, if those tyre walls are to be believed. I hope they are. For our leader, pretty conservative, I'd say. And yeah, you're starting to think your starting procedure, making sure that you've got those tyres correctly in the warm, the right kind of temperature. And you're really starting to think, how this race, you want it to go, kind of how your strategy is going to play out. Of course, all these drivers will kind of know what they want to do already, but that can change. Believe you me, a lot of things can happen in the FSR League and in any type of sim racing. And I'm sure you're going to see a good race no matter what.
Absolutely. And keep your eyes, I think Ivanov is going to be interesting from a strategy point of view, because he always, last season when I was watching these races, he was able to do different strategies. Everyone else would two-stop, he would one-stop, and that was how he won at Matsusaka early in the season. He did something similar to win in Brazil at the end of last season. So Ivanov, the form man, arguably one of the favourites, Zalagianis, the Academy champion, of course. He's looking to keep that form here. But Cezelle, the wild card on pole, will lead the field away, Will, as we wait for the lights to come on as Paul Augustlani gets into position at the back of the grid.
Yes, so all cars seem to be in position here for the start of the FSR Pro Round 1 here at the Bahrain International Circuit. Cezelle, for the new entry of Race Clutch, is on pole position, and can he get underway? I believe we've got the lights about to come on, and hopefully we get underway here for the start of round number 1. Looks to be a really good start from Zalagianis on the inside, and Ivanov actually going through the middle. What a start! Down to turn number 1 Ed for Ivanov, and around the outside may be able to take the lead here.
He is. There we go. He's got the inside for turn 2. So Cezelle really caught out by both Zalagianis and Ivanov. And look, here we go. Cezelle trying to fight Zalagianis into turn 4. He's got the inside. Zalagianis will have to hold it out around the outside as everyone's squabbling for position behind. But overall, a very, very clean getaway from all 23 cars then. Nobody's stranded on the starting grid. And it is Ivanov leading Cezelle, Zalagianis, Leonov, Lianos, Moynier up to 6th, ahead of Frelick, and then Nizio, Sevet, and Oldenmenger here, rounding out the top 10 as it's all changed behind as Katsapentelis has got past Ayers for 11th position.
Yeah, and that's a bit of that experience coming into play there, I think, for Ivanov. Of course, a title contender last season, getting the car off the line well and taking the lead here in round number 1. We look a little bit further back to Frelick, who is hoping to try and attack Nizo for 7th position.
Ooh,
also
settled. Sorry to interrupt, that was Leonov having a go at Zalagianis. Briefly got ahead through turn 11 there, but Zalagianis hanging it out around the outside, able to hold on to that 3rd position, but not for much longer. Leonov absolutely on a charge up the inside through into turn 15 and 16. and nothing that Zalagianis could do there after making a brilliant getaway. It's really starting to backfire. He's been shuffled out of the podium positions.
Yeah, that initial launch from Zalagianis was very good. Of course, being the Academy champion from last year will obviously give him that experience in this car, or in this type of car, I should say. And
he did do a few pro races. Oh, and all the TX3s, that vagabond in the wall at turn 1. And we did see that in the Academy race. Brandfolm had a bit of an issue into turn 1 where he just locked the rears, and I think something similar has happened to the TX3 driver, and he drops down to the very back of the field. But meanwhile, Nizio is having a go at Simon Frelick then on the exit of turn 4. Can he get the inside into 5 and 6? It's going to be side by side through this high-speed section. And Nizio is going to be shuffled out off track, but keeps his foot in into turn 8. Make sure you don't hit the rear wheel, my friend. And Cat Pinizio in the Super Venturi decides to wait for another corner before attacking Simon Frelick again.
Oh, well, not for too long. And down the inside goes Sevet.
That's Sevet attacking Nizio,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so Nizio's falling back quite rapidly here, and now maybe under threat from Oldenmenger. Oldenmenger looking to the inside, decides to back out of it, going into this corner, quite a high-speed corner, and yeah, that might have been a hard move to pull off, but bad sequence of corner for Nizio, and really got to compose himself now and hope to kind of recover a little bit of time.
And you also saw in the foreground there, Zalagianis using DRS into turn 11 to repass, get back up into third position ahead of Gianni Lianos. So Leonov has actually come to grief somewhere and dropped down to 8th position just in front of Nizio. But the leaders all locked together. Ivanov is being caught rapidly as Zazel down the straight. Zazel with DRS will pull to the inside and retake the lead that he held only briefly at the very start of this race. And Ivanov now is going to have to settle in behind and hopefully can strategically get back past the race clutch driver.
Well, yeah, that was a good move from Zazel down into turn number 1. We come towards turn 4. Not really turn 4, I'd say turn 3, but, you know, it depends on which track map you want to believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so now kind of sitting in that kind of dirty area. Now, of course, not as much as you'd see from a previous generation Formula car, but hoping to stay in DRS and maintain that advantage as we look a little bit further back to Fletcher, the Valet eSports car. Getting a little bit of squabbling down into turn number 8 here. Coming round the corner, tricky braking zone of turn 9. Of course, a lot of mistakes can be made here. Maybe a lockup or two. But everyone seems to be going around pretty smoothly, and we're quite close together here, Ed. I think we could still see a lot of shuffling of the order.
Yeah, you can also see a lot of DRS trains as well. But keep your eyes on Ivanov because he's going to be using that electric battery, the 120 kilojoules or kilowatts or whatever it is of energy that they have at their disposal, and he's going to try and use it to keep with Zazel down the straight, and potentially maybe he might save it on the run out of turn 10 to turn 11 to try and retake that position with the aid of DRS, which he now has over Zazel, as we see the valet of Sergio Fletcher challenging Chansapantelis as they approach the final corner. He's going to dive round the outside, but Fletcher will not have the best line. That goes to Chansapantelis. So now it's going to come to DRS as they all start to slipstream each other down the main straight. But Nizio has made a break in front of all of them, 3 wide almost down the straight, with the 2 Netrexes and the valet of Fletcher getting up into that 10th position.
It's all kicking off for this 10th position here on lap number 4. Multiple 3 wide moments.
Yeah, and look who's just got through into 12. It's Wesley Bukout in the Iris. So Bukout has sort of come out of nowhere. And we saw this so many times in Academy with him last season, where he was able to put in some fantastic overtakes despite occasionally running into trouble at the beginning of races and almost trouble finding him there in the form of Michael Ayers. He just avoids hitting the back of him.
And that shows you how rear limited these cars can be. You know, they've got a lot of torque from those V6 hybrid engines, and like you say, really easy just to light up those rear tyres, and you saw how easy it can be off the exit of turn 4/3, whatever you want to say. Yeah, it's going to be something. You don't want to do that too much in the race because you want to keep your tyres alive, and hopefully you won't see too much more of that, as we do see some more action in the background, fighting over a little bit further back.
Yeah, unfortunately, while we look at one Irish driver doing very well in the top 12, the other in the top 5, Alex Lahou in the 3rd Iris is sadly our first retirement down in 23rd, so he will go no further in the race. Zazel sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:33.346, to extend the gap to, it's only just still ahead of Ivanov by a second or so, but you've got to think now, Zazel is in absolutely the right position he needs to be. If he can break DRS, then Ivanov is going to be absolutely covered off in this first stint, and it's going to come down to strategy. As we predicted, but Bukow, not waiting for the strategy, he's going to use the DRS to breeze past Trasapantelis, and now it looks like Michael Ayers is going to follow him through into turn 1, Will.
Yeah, Ayers also being able to take advantage of the DRS and maybe a little bit of electrical assistance there as we headed into turn number 1 and 2. DRS opens again for Bukow. Of course, we have that double detection, double DRS zone from 1 detection point, so able to use that as a somewhat of a defensive measure against the hard charging Michael Ayers behind. And yeah, it's going to settle in now. A little bit of a gap ahead of him, able to maybe settle in to try and catch a little bit, give those tyres a little bit of a break. But, we've seen all action in the first 5 laps here, and if it continues like this, we're going to have a very, very exciting race.
Absolutely, but I think it is going to settle down and become a bit more strategic. We're going to see the guys with more experience, especially at this level, come to the fore. And like I said, a couple of the, like Salagianis, our Academy champion, did do about half of the pro season as well last year for Ground Effects. So he has got experience at this level, which is going to come in handy, and it already has in terms of him keeping up with Gianni Lianos, his former teammate, of course. Lianos beat in Academy, he beat Zaragianis just the once, I think, by winning at Matsusaka, where Zaragianis, I think, had a really difficult qualifying, which is what had to make his way through the field. Eventually got up to a second, passing Loic Meunier at the penultimate corner in that race, actually. All 3 of these drivers, of course, pretty much together on track now once more. So it seems the Academy class of 2022 has come to party. And into turn 1 they all go, and Meunier is getting that lovely double slipstream off the both of them, while he holds off the Royal Blues of Frelick and Sevet, who have been challenging behind as well. So we've got the monster battle for 4th position here, 3rd position rather, with Lianos leading this train. But the top 2 still within 3/10 of each other. So Ivanov, I think, keeping Cizel very, very honest indeed, and that experience I talked about that he has from last season starting to play into his hands. And Cizel could start being challenged in the next few laps.
Yeah, you'd certainly expect Ivanov to maybe let's see his experience come through from last season. Of course, Cizel, very, very quick. We know that from qualifying. Seems to be very quick in the race as well. However, I do expect to see Ivanov maybe be able to make a better strategical call later on in this race. But it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Of course, we've got a lot of laps left here for this to kind of unfold and see what we've got here coming on. But yeah, this battle for 3rd is certainly interesting. We've got quite a lot of cars with inside DRS lane. And I think, I think I'd like to be leading this train. If I'm one of these drivers, if you're leading the train, you can focus ahead of you. You've got a nice clear track. You're not having any weight of the car in front of you affect your tyre wear. And that's kind of the aim of where I'd like to be, as we see a little bit of Tokyo drift from Frelick there.
Well, that's a visual illustration of what you're talking about. Simon Frelick just struggling behind the toe of Loic Meunier. But here he gets DRS. He gets to the inside as they approach turn 1. And Simon Frelick, race winner in Formula Sprint 1 and GBWC, showing his experience in a different championship, but getting to grips with this Royal Blue FSR 2023 machine to climb up into the top 5. Next target, George Salagianis ahead of him.
Absolutely, kind of eyes forward, always look forward. You never want to be looking back, as we watch Ivanov here, who is very much looking forward to Cizel, who you'd hope not be looking in the rearview mirror a little bit too much, but you never know, nerves could be getting to him a little bit. But there's plenty of time left to go. There's plenty of laps left to lead in this race, and it's certainly an interesting one. I'm not sure how this strategy is going to play out, but keeping in that DRS zone certainly gives you an advantage on lap time, which allows you to be able to maybe be a little bit more gentle on the tyres, as long as you're not getting too close at least, and maybe even some other things such as fuel. But I don't think we're going to be fuel limited or anything like that today, because of course there is no refueling allowed in this era of Formula 1.
True, and there hasn't prevented people from running out of fuel, even in a non-fuel stop race, of course. But so you have got to keep your eyes, especially near the end of the race. But the interesting here from Netrex's point of view, they've got Lianos who's built up. There's a big gap in front of Lianos since he's been holding up the train of cars behind him, and that allows Ivanov a few more options strategically in this battle with Christoph Cizel. So that could well play their advantage. And as in terms of not looking back, I always think of the quote from Ed Nemo from The Incredibles: "I never look back, darling. It distracts from the now."
Well, that would be certainly correct, I would imagine. And, you know, if you're Lianos, I think that your main aim is to break that toe, you know, break the DRS detection zone. It's going to be certainly very, very hard. But if you're able to do that, you kind of start to be able to build a little bit of a gap, you know, build a bit of trying to evolve your race a little bit, maybe to even catch up to the front group. But certainly at this point in time, it would seem that, you know, Ivanov and Saval have a rather large pace advantage at this point in time. However, things can change as we end up on different tyres, different phases of wear on the tyre. So there's still a lot to play for in that aspect. And yeah, it has started to calm down, which is good for our voices because there was a lot of action in those first 5 laps.
Certainly, we've still got a way to go, haven't we? So we need to make sure we've got enough life, not just in these tyres, but in the back of our throats when we see the win across the line at the end. But it's anyone's guess whether it's going to be Sazel, Ivanov, or potentially maybe one of the others can break free if they can get in front of Lianos. Or maybe Lianos himself can bring something to the party. Maybe he's saving his tyres quite a lot and hoping to do a monster stint here. It wouldn't surprise me. I've seen these drivers do it before. But in Pro, where I literally thought, well, they can't get to the end without another stop, and then they just keep going, and it's just like, and they just get their lap times don't suddenly drop off a cliff. It's just like, oh, we'll just keep going then.
Well, it's their job to prove you wrong at the end of the day. We all know they're listening. They've got the YouTube up. They can hear us while we're driving.
Well, their spotters have got the YouTube up.
Yeah, potentially. That's a good point. And they're telling us, oh, you need to prove the commentators wrong. So yeah.
Whoa! And a bit of a drift there for Zalagianis, who's collected by Simon Frelick at turn 1. Just as we thought it was calming down, Zalagianis has a huge moment, and that is, I think, the hybrid kinetic energy recovery system on the brakes just locking up. And Zalagianis, Simon Frelick had nowhere to go there. He just had to go straight into the back of Zalagianis as we, unfortunately, this is still the live picture I think we've just cut to. There we go. So that's the aftermath, and Frelick really lost out here, Will.
Yeah, so down into turn 1 looks to be a little bit of a lock of the rear brake potentially, you know, a bit of that hybrid, and yeah, just getting caught up. Thankfully, seems to get away with it pretty all right, to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, but it does give Lianos that gap that we were talking about. It might be so hard to get. Now that is there for him, and he can kind of focus on his race in terms of this 3rd place charge.
Yeah, but all that hard work to get ahead of Sevic, to get ahead of Moynier, he's got to do it all again in Simon Frelick now. So Zalagianis, he's not going to be best pleased with him there, although I don't think there was much Zalagianis could do to get out of the way once the rear tyres started to lock and he just went around.
Yeah, it was certainly nothing intentional. Just an innocent mistake from Zalagianis. But yeah, like you say, Frelick, the innocent party, coming off worse there. But we've seen him come through the pack before. Can he do it again? I'm sure he can. So I'm sure that none of that medium tyre has been used up too much, and certainly to see maybe a bit more action from Frelick of his master of overtaking we saw in the first 5 laps.
The lucky thing is he's emerged right at the back of this DRS train that he was already in the middle of, so Oldenmenger giving him that little bit of DRS and slipstream. Up the inside goes his teammate Sevet on Loic Moynier, and he's going to be able to sweep around the outside into turn 2. Yes, he is. So Royal Blue on the move, and now Oldenmenger, the Dutchman, fancying a go at the Frenchman of Loic Moynier as they approach the technically turn 3, but actually turn 4. As Moynier tries to breeze it around the outside of the burst car, and looks like Oldenmenger is going to have to stick to the inside here, and indeed he does so. So brave stuff there. Oldenmenger opportunistically following Sevet through, and Moynier being shuffled down in that Iris.
Yeah, falling back a bit here, you kind of want to stop the bleeding. You don't want to get too panicked about your situation. Perhaps, you know, actually losing that place to Frelick, who we know has probably got more pace than what his position shows due to that incident before, wouldn't be too bad, because when you've got no one behind you, you just got to focus forward. You can kind of calm yourself down, get your tyre temperatures under control, make sure you're not doing anything reckless, and it's a good point to be in terms of being able to control yourself and control what's happening around you. However, you never really want to fall backwards, so we'll certainly see how it pans out, but you still would expect Frelick to make some positions up given the pace that we saw earlier on.
Being making up positions, a bit of a shout out to Paul Augustani in the Visceral car. Started at the very rear of the field. He didn't get the lap that he ideally wanted in qualifying, but has gone all the way up to 14th and is now challenging Liam Howard for 13th position in the other NX27, of course. So the sole Visceral is, Frelick already on the move, and he passes Moynier for the 2nd time in this race using DRS, and is Moynier going to try and counterattack down the inside? He's not quite close enough to pull that one off. So there we go. 1 place made already for Frelick after his unfortunate blockage from Zalagianis. So he's got to catch up past Oldenmenger and Sevic before he can challenge Zalagianis again.
Definitely using a little bit of the ERS modes that we talked about there, the little bit of overtake, because that closing speed, despite them both having DRS, was quite a lot. Somewhat reminiscent of a Red Bull, but we don't have any different brands of cars here today. As you look a little bit further back, Lane, who we were talking about earlier, said made a very, very good start to this race, starting at the back. One of our third place runner on the hard tyre. So a little bit of a different strategy for Lane. And I think as we see this race go on, the multitude of laps, that tyre advantage for him is going to continue to increase because the medium tyre obviously will wear more than the hard. And that's kind of an interesting point to see how it plays out. Don't expect anything such as a win from this position, but, being 20 seconds back, but definitely can make up quite a few positions as we look a little bit further back to Tucson.
Yeah, and the yellow valets of Ayres and Fletcher are probably going to be leading on that strategy then. So what you might see is them emerging in the middle of the pack, perhaps with when Lianos and Zalagianis pit, they might end up having to negotiate those two valets, and potentially Paul Auguslani as well if he keeps driving as he has been in the first 12 laps of this race. Meanwhile, Tucson continues to pursue Vagapov, another hard tyre runner. Of course, had that spin at the end of qualifying. Didn't qualify exactly where he wanted to. He's had a tough start to the race after spinning again at turn 1. And now he's got Mirko Mancini, another stalwart of Royal Blue, of course, who had a couple of podiums, I believe, to his name last season, and has not had an easy start to this race on the hard tyre. But through goes Tucson now. He's the first to pass Vagapov then in the ground effect. Yellow ground effect, of course. Tucson also designs the liveries for the ground effect team, by the way. So that is why he gets a special one, for no other reason, purely. But it is a beautiful livery he's got for 2023 for all three series that ground effect compete in. Meanwhile, we've not talked too much about the battle up front. Still, Ivanov is sort of just hung in there, 3 or 4 attempts behind Cizelle. It's not really looked like making a move up the inside, but I'm surprised he hasn't dropped back further and just saved his tyres, because that would seem like the more Victor Ivanov thing to do. But he's really kept the pressure on Cizelle. I think he's trying to force a mistake here, isn't he?
But it kind of depends where you view your pace to be, I imagine. So if you're wanting to keep in that DRS area, that DRS zone, you're obviously going to get a pace lift, a pace advantage from that. So if Ivanov believes that even if he drops back and saves tyres, he might not be able to recatch that gap, or has any doubts about his pace, after how qualifying went, you could be a reason for him sitting there. We can see he's definitely staying behind.
Oh, and a lockup for Cizelle. So that shows the pressure he's putting on him. Is that going to put extra strain on those tyres? So it's either trying to force a mistake or force Cizelle to pit earlier than he ideally would like. So as long as he keeps the pressure on, that limits the options for the race clutch driver ahead of him. Meanwhile, Ivanov's options, that 6.5 second gap behind, staying very stable. His options just keep getting more and more, isn't he? So if Cizelle stays out, he can pit. If Cizelle pits, he can stay out.
Yeah, and I think we've certainly entered the kind of management phase. We've not seen drivers kind of go for any crazy moves anymore. We've definitely seen Ivanov sit there, kind of be content with his position. And it's actually interesting to me that I feel like the pace at the front is very comparable to the pace of Lianos, Zalagianis in the further back, because we haven't seen that gap change really since the start of this race, which makes you wonder what could be possible later into the race, and whether we've got any of those from that pack able to make a charge, maybe extending their mediums onto maybe an aggressive soft tyre potentially, or whatever the strategies may play out to be. But yeah, like you say, at the minute, bit of a management phase. It's interesting to see how these drivers manage these tyres, and certainly an interesting phase of the race.
Meanwhile, Frelick has also passed Oldenmenger to get into the top 6 then. So it's his teammate ahead, and there we go. Cizelle is first to blink then. He pits from the lead on lap 13. And is he going to go for the hard tyres here, or is he going to do another stint on mediums? I think those are his only options here.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't expect to see him go down, you see, onto the hard tyres. Yeah, at this stage of the race, we're only 14 laps in. You want to get that kind of long stint going. It'd be interesting to see how he comes out in traffic, actually, and how much that can affect him. It looks like we've got quite a large gap that he's coming into. So he's clearly seen that, either had an engineer, a teammate, or someone at Race Clutch having a little look out for him. And as providing he doesn't get overtaken after this.
That's Hamilton up the inside of Barbukov for 15th position then. And in fact, he was attacking Howard there in the net wreck. So here we go into turn 4. I'm sorry, I'm talking over you here, Will. But up the inside into turn 4 goes Joshua Hamilton. Liam Howard tries to turn in from the outside a little bit there and gets run out of room. So good racecraft there from Joshua Hamilton on his debut to get himself into the top 14. I've seen Joshua Hamilton in several other series. Incredibly good driver in these sorts of situations. Always seems to know where to place his car. And the TX3 keeps gaining positions there. Chatsapantelles next up the road. But then it's Cezelle who's just come out the pits and has got a lovely gap in front of him. So good strategy from Race Clutch. They clearly, like you said, Will saw the gap, pit into it, and now the pressure is on Ivanov. How long can he get those mediums to last?
Yep, and it's got, obviously we may have a bit of a delta now between those two tyres, and it's going to be interesting to see that gap coming down of 0.3 just there, just watching it. 22.0, 20.9, 20.5. So you see the big delta, there you go, as Ivanov reacts and comes into the pit lane. I expect a very similar strategy. Has that one lap undercut been enough?
And Lianos in as well.
To take advantage onto mediums, right? So this is a different strategy. Now we're starting to see how things play out. So this is going to be very, very interesting going into the second phase.
Yeah, both of them are going to have to make at least one more stop, but Cezelle is going to hold on to that track position. Is Ivanov going to be able to get out in front of Chatsapantelles? Yes, he is, more than comfortably. So this hasn't worked out too badly for NX27 and Ivanov. They're still definitely in the mix, and if the medium has got better pace than the hards, then this is going to be a very challenging stint indeed for Cezelle, but also challenging for Chatsapantelles, who's got Hamilton relentlessly swerving around in the background behind him, looking to take advantage up the inside into turn 4, approaching 5, and not the run that Hamilton needed to go up the inside into that fast left-right chicane, or was it right-left actually? But anyway, into turn 8 they go, and Hamilton waiting for the opportunity. Chatsapantelles looks like he's worn the mediums more than Hamilton has worn his hards. So this is sort of what Cezelle is hoping will happen later on, where the hard tyre will come to him, and hopefully he can do it while holding off the attentions of Ivanov.
Right, left, left, right, left. You were technically right in both instances there, because it is 3 corners. But like you say, you know, you've seen Hamilton in many series before, although maybe not a lot of experience in this car. Certainly a lot of experience on the sim, and potentially with conserving the tyres. And it certainly looks like Hamilton has got a very, very good concept of conserving these tyres right now, and has a really good pace delta over Chatsapantelles.
Yep, so Greek driver Chatsapantelles is just going to have to hold on for as long as he can, as we see that looks like a Liam Howard making a mistake, which allows Stoyan Barbakov to go up the inside, and finally into the pits comes Chatsapantelles. So the mediums, they are not at their best at this point in the race, and now Liam Howard slots in behind Barbakov, hoping to just follow through into turn 1. Zalagianis, meanwhile, leads from Sevet and Oldenmenger up front. So all those medium runners still yet to pit, and Ayers and Fletcher have crucially come out ahead of Cezelle on the hard tyres they've been running since the start of the race. So Valles could really get themselves into the mix here and hold up the net leaders, as it were.
Yeah, and like you say, one thing I'm very interested about is looking at that graphic, that little timing tower on the left-hand side, looking at those gaps come down, see how much time that they're losing running these mediums longer. You know, the medium tyre, running it a little bit longer gives you the advantage later into the stint, you know, gives you newer hard tyres, newer soft tyres, whatever you decide to go on. And it can be a real advantage if you're able to extend it, and the delta at the end of the race, the drop-off that others may experience from is severe enough. I'm not sure really what to expect of the life of these medium tyres, but, you know, they look pretty content at the front, Zalagianis. I think they could go a few more laps here, to be honest.
Yeah, they are lapping in sort of Zalagianis low 35s, Oldenmenger in the low 34s actually last time around. But Cezelle sets fastest lap of the races. In comes Oldenmenger actually, just as I speak about him. 133.208, so Cezelle was pushing to build the gap to Ivanov behind him. And this is going to put Cezelle 4 tenths behind Sergio Fletcher then. And we're seeing Oldenmenger exit the pit lane then. And where is he going to come out? He's going to come out behind Joshua Hamilton and Stoyan Barbakov. But here comes Cezelle then. He's passing one valet car already. Fletcher powerless on those old hards against the new hards on the race clutch. And now Michael Ayers. It's a valet sandwich that Christophe Cezelle finds himself in. But he's negotiating it very well so far, Will.
Yeah, and it's all about not losing as much time as possible, right? So we've got to get through this traffic as quick as possible. This time, the more time you spend behind him, the more you're going to overheat the
Yeah,
tyre.
he's got a 3-second gap to Ivanov now. That's really impressive on the hards. He's been able to just press on, and Ivanov maybe is trying to go longer on this medium stint then, or he's just not got the pace that the race clutch has out the pits.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting actually because...
Oh, this is risky. Up the inside into turn 11 and through. Michael Ayers does not fight that one too much then. So Christoph Zizell up into 5th position then, and all the guys ahead still yet to pit.
Yeah, very nice move from Zizell there into turn 11. Of course, we didn't quite expect to see that, and what we should mention is Ivanov is actually on the hard tyre.
Oh, he is on the same strategy.
So it may just take a little bit of time for those tyre graphics to update, but I think we should believe the timing tower. That's what that showed the first time. So we've got to be keeping an eye on that.
I believe the white stripe on the side of that tyre wall. In comes Sergio Fletcher then. So interesting, the valet behind gets the pit first, and Michael Ayers will continue on the hards. As it looks like a couple others pitting as well. Zalagianis, Moynier, and Sevet too.
Yeah, and the round of pit stops is kind of starting to get underway here. We're seeing a lot of people ditch those mediums pretty early on into the race. You know, still got way over half the race to go, but certainly would allude to what we've seen here as we see a lot of action going into turn number 1. That's Sevet around the outside. Can he hang on to it against Leonov? And he does so far. Not sure there's going to be an attack down into turn number 4/3, whatever you want to say, and looks to hold on nicely, to be honest. So yeah, a lot of people ditching those mediums as we look at the minute, and it'll be interesting to see like the likes of Frelick, who we still see lead on those mediums, how much that extension of the stint can benefit him later in the race.
There we go. So Leonov not able to pass despite being on the softer compounder tyre there, and Sevet crucially holding on. So that's going to keep him in the mix with Oldenmenger, who's also gone for another set of mediums. Remember, you have to run more than one compound of tyres. You can't just keep going on the mediums to the end. You make another pit stop either for softs or potentially for hards. Here is Moynier up the inside at 10-11 of Mirko Mancini. Mancini is going to still be on the inside for the next 2 corners though, so it's a long way round for the Irish driver. Moynier up into the top 12 there, had to stick his foot in. Mancini had not pit yet, just didn't have the grip to hold on to that one.
Yeah, I believe, I'm not so sure about this, but is Mancini one of our original hard runners, potentially, who started nearer to the back on those hard tyres? So I imagine potentially not to pit yet, so that's why we see the quite significant grip advantage. Few more dive into pit lane, certainly, yeah, and that would also be our previous leader of Frelick as well, who's now in. So, yeah, big battle down into turn number 1.
It's getting very mixed up.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and people really wanting to make a lot of progress here straight after the stints and settle into their runs.
Leonov crucially getting through now on the royal blue of oh no, that's Lianos, sorry, who's just come out of the pits now and slotted in between Oldenmenger and Barbukov. So Oldenmenger has somehow, I think, managed to undercut the people around him and get up into 3rd place now, with most of the pit stops having been completed. And Zizell and Ivanov back in the lead. Of course, Zizell with a much bigger lead than he previously enjoyed then, after a brilliant outlap. Those outlaps really made the difference, where he was setting fast laps of the race. Ivanov just couldn't really respond. And Oldenmenger now, I think, is going to have to get pretty defensive now with Gianni Lianos bearing down on him. The 2 Royal Blues, will Sevet and Barbukov work together? Surely, I think Barbukov yet to pit. There we go, moving aside for Sevet then. So that's good news for Patrick Sevet.
Yeah, like you say, good news for that to be exchanged quickly. Lianov, who we see, who looks like certainly looked like that in game. It's going to be an interesting kind of dynamic. Same for Oldenmenger, who we've seen made a lot of progress, you know, dropping down from the World Championship last season. Potentially going to pull a little bit of a different strategy here to attempt to make up some time. Does look like Frelick, who's gone straight onto those medium tyres, is going to make a very aggressive move to the inside, using a bit of the overtake. And it's looking like that move's going to be completed straight up into 6th position and a double overtake, I believe.
Yeah, a very compliant Barbukov, just staying out of the way on the outside, but sliding in right in front of Loic Moynier as well, as Leonov also negotiates through them as well on the medium. So this is really where we're seeing the medium and the hards starting to diverge in the strategies here, where the guys on the mediums are going to be faster at this phase, but could struggle a bit later on. whereas the hard guys are desperately trying to get track position and not lose it so that they'll be in a better position throughout, basically.
Yeah, and that's kind of all it's about. You know, you don't want to get held up. You want to run your plan as nicely as you can do. We've actually seen someone go. We've actually seen Teun go into soft tyre, which I really didn't expect to see at this stage of the race. And I was going to talk about that. It certainly seems like, you know, we only saw 14 laps out the medium tyres, as we see Munia potentially going on Lenov here, who is on the mediums. So
that's
quite
using
an
the
interesting
electrical
move.
power. That's when they're using the kilowatts of energy to pass into turn 11 there. So Lenov just didn't have any left and was caught out from that battle he was in earlier. Munia taking full advantage, and despite being on the hard, and as he said, despite not having DRS. So that really shows how important energy management, literal energy management, it's not Formula E, but it's deployment rather, is in these FSR 2023 cars. You're going to see it here in Pro, you're going to see it even more so in the World Championship a bit later on. But anyway, up front, Cézanne leads by 3.2 seconds. Oldenmenger is about 13 seconds back and leading that sort of train of cars. A couple of seconds back to Lianos, then Sevet, Frelick, Mournier, Barbikov, Leonov, and Ayers rounding out the top 10. So the valets, having pit for mediums, sort of find themselves in, bit of a tricky situation here, right behind Ivan Leonov, who's struggling for pace at the moment.
Yeah, and it seems that Leonov maybe has an issue, potentially overheated those tyres initially, quite sure, but it's been vulnerable now to both the valet cars as they move down the inside, down into the 5, 6 and 7 complex here at the Bahrain International Circuit, and they've made a nice little bit of progress together as they attempt to attack Barbikov here.
Yeah, Barbikov also struggling, having stayed out since the beginning on the hard tyre, so he went even longer than both valets did. And Fletcher, having pit first, undercut his teammate Ayers and gets very close to the back of Barbikov into turn 10 then. But the valets working really well together, I think, to gain ground in this race. They're going to get another position here. Barbikov is completely defenseless on the outside there. And one valet gets through. Expect to see Michael Ayers follow him swiftly.
And that's some of the benefits of having teammates in this type of situation. They can help you out. They can help you with a little bit of strategy, you know. You can kind of maybe have a bit of a talk to them throughout the race and come up with some ideas, maybe some adjustments to your strategy. As we see, down the inside goes Erez before the braking zone, taking advantage of that electrical energy. And it certainly seems incredibly important to choose your moments to use this electrical overtake deployment, as we see a few people going out wide.
That's Zalagianis, who's really lost ground after his pit stop, stuck in the midfield with Leonov, and is trying to make up positions. And Leonov, in fact, has to pit. Is that his second pit stop then? So something is very wrong in that Netrex there, and let's hope they can get it sorted out and he can get back into the race. But meanwhile, Zalagianis presses on as we see Frelick and Mournier using the DRS on one another. But yeah, as you're saying about teammates, I think Christophe Cézanne, while he would love to have a teammate, he's sort of showing you don't necessarily need one if you've got that sheer pace and that sheer time management. If you can just manage things up front, get on pole position, and hold off Viktor Ivanov, then he's potentially going to be right in there when we get to the last couple of laps.
You don't need a teammate if you're dominating at the front. He is all the help that he needs, clearly, and has kept that gap pretty stable, you know, at around 3.5 seconds since we saw the initial push after taking the undercut on that one lap earlier, pitting on lap number 14, and also getting through those, it's hard to call them traffic, but the cars that were yet to pit as quickly as possible in this race, and that has really developed that advantage that Ivanov was kind of trying not to let happen. You know, we saw in that first stint was very keen to stay in the DRS zone, and potentially now you see why, because it really does seem like Cézanne has the kind of the pace advantage enough to control that gap as we're seeing at the front.
Although I should point out for race clutch, by the way, ideally they need at least 2 drivers to be within their chance of winning the team's championship, because I think Cézanne getting the maximum points still is going to leave them a little bit vulnerable over the course of the season. But here we go. Zalagianis uses DRS. A clear Cac Nizio on the run into turn 1. That's Nizio with the DRS as well. So the ground effect has saved its battery, using it into turn 1. Brakes beautifully. And now Barbikov, next target then. So Barbikov still struggling, still yet to pit, and easy meet then for Zalagianis. That's the Greek driver up into the top 11 with Bukout now holding that top 10 position in front of him.
Yeah, and we've seen Tucson make quite a few plays over the last few laps on that soft tyre, very aggressive strategy. Potentially now to make a move on Vargapov very soon.
But is that because the people around him are pit for hards, though?
Yeah, well, obviously the tyre advantage is going to be very, very high, and it's very interesting to see the life that Tucson's going to be able to get out of these tyres, because it certainly looks like, you know, judging by the way the mediums are going, you wouldn't expect more than 10 laps from a soft tyre. Of course, these cars are getting lighter as the race goes on, so tyre wear will naturally improve a little bit, of a bit of contact to the back of the virtual driving by TX3 car. And that's not going to help your progress by doing that, but hopefully Tucson can close back up and make a move shortly.
Yeah, Vagabov on those hards, so crucial to hold on to that position, not just for himself, but to help his teammate Joshua Hamilton. A couple of seconds up the road then, doesn't want him under threat from Tucson. But the battle continues then, and Matt Tucson, the only one to go on this different strategy here. It could be that having with Tucson, let's see what tyres did he start the race on, the mediums, right, wasn't it? He did about 18 laps on the mediums and 4 on the softs. Could be pitting in for another set of mediums before too long, given that the soft hasn't got a huge lifespan here, especially with the limitation on the rear tyres here. We've seen so many people struggling with traction on the exit of some of these corners. But anyway, I think Tucson getting into DRS will have another run at Vagabov down the end of this straight then, Will.
A lot of electrical deployment down into turn number 1 as we start lap 24 for Tucson. Down the inside, clears up before the braking zone, and going into the 2 and 3 complex looks to be an easy pass and an easy place to maintain.
Right, now he's got to take off and catch up to Hamilton then to make it 2 OTX3 cars he can overtake then. But up front, a little bit further forward in the field, we've got Sevet holding off Moynier and Frelick. These three have had a pretty epic battle, haven't they? But this has allowed Lianos to break away. And we're seeing the Valets, having stayed out longer, switch to the mediums, starting to edge their way into this battle as well. So the 4th place battle, it continues. And Oldenmenger is making great use of the mediums in turn to gap Lianos at this phase. So that experience from the World Championship, he may not have got any top 10 finishes in the World Championship last season, but it's great to see Burst Esports running up front in Pro, because other than Cameron Roger, of the former FSR President's outings last season, where he finished, I think, 5th at Silverstone, they've not had a whole lot to shout about in Pro, have a Burst. And they had a pretty difficult World Championship season last year as well, dropping from winning the previous championship down to 4th. So it's looking like Burst resurgent then, but also resurgent is Moynier, who just gets bracks out of that one pretty late, but forces Sevet to go very offline and very deep into turn 1. And now he's going to use the DRS as they approach turn 4, Will.
Yep, easy move, right on the electrical deployment. You saw it as soon as he exited turn number 3, that electrical deployment straight away and down the inside. And very easy move. It looks to be like that for Moynier. And these lot are going to continue to battle. One thing I'd like to focus on briefly is Oldenmenger. You know, we've seen, you know, you're saying having a nice run at the moment, but really that gap's not coming down enough. Big gap to kind of a big gap to car behind. You know, they've made up about 6 seconds, I'd say, something like that, around about that. But when we're looking at actually challenging the front drivers of Savell and Ivanov, this is just not enough, realistically, to make that medium, that more aggressive strategy worth it. I don't know what your opinions are on this, Ed, but to me, it certainly looks like Oldenmenger's race is very much with the cars behind, and the challenge in front is very much a 2-horse race.
Well, that's the damage that being held up in that train behind Lianos has kind of done. It's sort of forced him into this, where he had to go on the mediums, make up positions, and just try and build as big a gap as he can. He's really, of the medium runners, him and the Valets, I think, the only ones to sort of make it work, aren't they, in this stint? But I don't know. I think his last lap round, let's see it, he's sort of pretty equal on pace with the 2 leaders, though, on the hard tyre. So I don't think Oldenmenger was realistically going to fight the top 2 in this race the way things have panned out. I think he needed to qualify a little bit better to be in that mix. And who knows, maybe he can build on this 3rd place in later races if indeed he can stay there. Depends if he can make the medium strategy work, because Lianos is still looking in a pretty good position on the harder tyre and holding the gap to Moynier in his own little train here. So Oldenmenger, like you say, is probably going to pit a bit later, go back onto the hard tyre and sort of slot in around about where Lianos, Moynier, Frelick, Sevet are.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of thinking. I agree with that. And I think that, though, to start the season off with a P3, a podium, is a good way to start. You know, of course, you're getting a little bit of points. It helps you as the season goes forward, and maybe you adapt to this new format, car, electrical deployment, whatever you're kind of struggling with, and it's a good way to start the season. Of course, you can always make that pace deficit up going into the few rounds. We're going to see a pass here between the Valet cars, pretty easy, pretty simple. You know, there's clearly a little bit of, you know, okay, you can go ahead now, as, you know, Fletcher kind of letting him have it. You certainly wouldn't see a massive fight between these two, and it's kind of crucial for them now to try and get the head of this train, you know, the head of Lianos. I certainly would expect to see them start to make some moves on Servette and Felix, the two teammates ahead of the Royal Blue Racing cars. But are those mediums past their life? Are they starting to go off here? And is that hard starting to get an advantage? It certainly wouldn't look like that, looking at how Erez was closing up there into the final corner.
Yeah, and we see Lianos trying to break the toe, and Moynier up ahead. But that felt to me like Ayres, he's on a lap fresher tyres. He did get undercut by Fletcher earlier, but I think he kind of should have been ahead anyway if he'd had first call on the pit stops. But Fletcher sort of just chose to pit first, I think. So it's a little bit the order being returned to the way it was, in my opinion. With Michael Ayres, of course, very experienced from Super League, fourth places, I think, in GPVWC Super League this season, also for Valet. And if he can get to the head of this train, a fourth place, I know there might be another fourth place in it for him. But meanwhile, this looks like Mancini, Chatsapantelis, and Bukow all squabbling together.
Yeah, big fight here as we see Hamilton round the outside in the background. That's a really good move. And he's going to get... Oh, this is really close, going down into the 5-6-7 complex.
Nizio's got the inside, but Hamilton has got the overlap. There we go. It almost bumps into the side on exit there. And we get a great view from the back of Mancini as Chatsapantelis has now made his way through all three drivers, I think, in a couple of corners. But yeah, some brave stuff from Joshua Hamilton to hang it around the outside. And Campanizio, who's is a former pole sitter, but got on pole at Indianapolis last season, but he's kind of struggled in this race. I mean, his strategy just hasn't been working for him on the hard tire. He just keeps getting overtaken by everyone.
I would certainly say that will make chat happy as well, because I've seen a lot of support for Joshua Hamilton.
I'm not surprised
in the chat. So very popular overtake that will be as we look a little bit further forward to continue talking about this battle that we've been seeing for a number of laps here. And it looks like Erez is going to make the move to the inside, electrical deployment on. And that looks like to be an easy move down into turn number 1, but potentially a little bit of a fight back from Servette. Not quite.
We'll have to back out quite late there to avoid barging to the side of the valet there. But Ayres now, he's cleared one Royal Blue. Now Frelick is next up. So it felt to me a little bit like Servette was trying to help his teammate that out there. But now Fletcher, also on the mediums, will be hoping to put the pressure on Servette and get it 2 valets into the top 8, which would be a great return for them. I think they would be the only team with 2 cars in the top 8, actually, if they can do that in this race. It's so many different cars. It's amazing. Pretty much all the top 7 are all from different teams, aren't they? Although technically you've got 2 Netrex teams in there, Ivanov and Lianos. Ivanov, by the way, a little update on him. Still 3.5 seconds then behind Cizel in the battle for the lead. He's kept it pretty stable, kept the hards alive, and it really feels like Ivanov is doing what I thought he might do earlier, where he just sort of settles in and tries to do something different strategically. Maybe he'll try and run a bit longer than Cizel on the hard. In fact, neither of them have to stop again, but in terms of tyre life, I think they might be forced into doing it.
Yeah, and certainly you'd say that it looks like Cizel has that under control. Potentially we could see another stop, which could throw something up in the mix as we're looking at Chatsapantelis, who's on those medium tyres. Potentially going to have a go at Buchholz here, but maybe those mediums starting to go off. I'm not quite sure, but could see a battle.
I'm surprised at the mediums. They've worked surprisingly well in the second stint compared to what was expected. I thought just everyone would go for the hards, run them as long as possible, maybe pit at the end for mediums, and that would be the optimum strategy. But a couple of people mixing it up, which is good to see.
Yeah, and certainly we're seeing quite a lot of slides out there, you know. People are not being too kind on the tyres, and the track temperature is certainly hot enough as down the inside goes Chatsapantelis, under braking a little bit of a swiggle.
That's Hamilton on Chatsapantelis, sorry.
Sorry, that is Hamilton, you're correct. Yeah, that was Hamilton on Chatsapantelis, and another popular one for the chat. Thank you for pointing that one out. And yeah, Hamilton moving forward again. So equal tyres for these two, you know, both on the mediums, and potentially Hamilton just getting the better life out of them.
Yeah, Arda Ercan, who's Hamilton's teammate, says Chef Hamilton. And you remember Arda Ercan from the Stock Car Pro Series, where he finished 3rd, I think, in the points, runner up to Denahan and his teammate Fabien Ballet at TX3. So, anyway, we continue on, and Frelick continues to absorb the pressure from Ayres, which is allowing Loic Moynier to just make a little bit of a break for it at the moment. But Michael Ayres having a really strong race at the moment for Valet. And Simon Frelick, of course, both of these two are GPBWC experienced drivers having a very good fight at the moment.
Yeah, and that's Valley Esports cars. I'd certainly say that of any of the cars in the field, the medium strategy for these two Valley Esports cars seems to have paid off. To be on the boost again, a little bit of DRS action going on. Down the inside, no defense from Frelick. Speed starts to equalize out a little bit on the brakes. Going to get the maneuver done. Down into turn number 1, and again, looks to be pretty simple for this Valley Esports car, and maybe under flex from Fletcher soon as well.
Yeah, Fletcher has cleared Sevet for that 8th place then. So Valet on the move. We're also getting a message about race clutch. Apparently, the weird movement that you might have seen from Christophe Seville down the straight a few laps ago was because his monitor turned off, which is a scary thing indeed. I've seen it end a lot of people's races, so Seville very lucky to continue, losing only a second to even. It's lucky it didn't happen at the end of the straight, just in the middle, so he had enough time before the braking zone to sort it out. And now Ayres already on the back of Loic Moynier. The mediums are flying right now, and as is Michael Ayres.
Yeah, and I would expect to see a move very shortly. These medium tyres on these Valley Esports cars are working superbly. Down the inside, maybe, here. Oh, what a move from Michael Ayres. That is a fantastic move.
Yeah.
Down into turn number 11.
Moynier had to get absolutely out of the way there, and that has put him right into the path of his old buddy Simon Frelick then, who's going to have to continue to fend off the attentions of. But Ayres now is free to attack Lianos, another hard tyre runner then, and if he can clear him, then, like I said, 4th place up for grabs here. Oldenmenger, though, on the same strategy pretty much as the Valet, or similar strategy anyway, is quite a few seconds up the road then, and making hay while the sun shines. As indeed it does here in Bahrain. It tends to, doesn't rain too often. And there we go, another move. Is that Fletcher now passing Frelick into the top 7. So Sergio Fletcher saying anything that Michael Ayres can do, I can do as well.
Yeah, and like you say, this strategy is working perfectly for the Valley Esports cars here. Potentially a compromise on setup to allow a little bit less wear on the tyres. That's maybe why we've seen them make so much progress from qualifying. And yeah, certainly working well for them. You know, and we've seen so many overtakes here, and it's such a good advert for the rFactor 2 platform here in the FSR League. And I'm sure get over to the website if you want to compete in one of the series in the future. And yeah, certainly looks like a lot of fun, Ed.
Yeah, a lot of support in the chat actually for Ayres and Fletcher and Valley Esports as well. So great to see so many different fans all converging, all cheering their drivers on. And hopefully they can use them. Maybe that cheer will get to them somehow, I don't know. But great to see so much support regardless. We'll let them know after the race that they were being cheered on. But anyway, Michael Ayres, being cheered or not, continuing to chase down Gianni Lianos, the Greek driver, holding on to that 4th position. The lead still 2.5 seconds between Seville and Ivanov. So Seville, like I said, he's just survived that scary moment when the monitor turning off, which is certainly, I hope it's not a Lewis Hamilton sort of thing where they're making up issues to sort of make the victory sound more dramatic than it is. It's sort of, Bono, my monitor is dead sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a scary moment. Imagine just driving and everyone just suddenly turns the lights off. It's quite
I imagine the
interesting.
race clutch voice chat with Jürgen Van Bergen, team manager, getting very panicked at that moment. But Christoph collects himself, continues on, and he's kept the gap very stable since. So Ivanov, maybe he will have heard this and hoping, just keep the pressure on because the monitor, it might die at any moment and there's a win up for grabs. He can even still just about see that red race clutch car holding on in front of him. So the NX27 driver pressing on, hoping to make this strategy work in his favour.
Yeah, and we see a lot of red and black liveries in sim racing, but not too many on this grid. So it does make that livery stand out for Race Clutch here, and I think it's definitely adapted well onto this car, and I really like it. I don't know what your opinions are on it, but I think with BenQ sponsorship, with the nice little colours, black nose, red around the car, very rock red. I don't know, that sounds very Italian to me, I don't know. But it looks really nice in my opinion.
It's funny you should say that because I feel very sorry for the World Championship commentators because they've got to commentate on Race Clutch and Ferrari being in the same race. So they'll be hoping that, and of course, I say Christophe Cézanne hasn't really got any teammates. He hasn't been pro as Ivanov dies for the pit lane. But Cézanne has, of course, got in the World Championship Robin Pansart and Tom Latu to rely on for sort of extra data if he so needs it. We'll see them in action. Oh, and Christoph is the reserve for the WC in case Pansar or Latu has to drop out, of course, as my broadcast director He will race, so one of them has dropped down. Not sure if it's Panzer or Latu, but now Ivanov exits the pit lane. Oldenmenger is in front. Is he going to come out in front of Lianov? No. Through goes Lianos. Through goes Michael Ayres, but he is going to get out in front of Loic Moynier, who's not had a great lap. And in fact, now he sees the NX27 in between him and Michael Ayres, as Ayres is all over the back of Lianos up ahead, Will.
Well, yeah, as you see them potentially going side by side, not quite sure.
Oh, round the outside into turn 4. Beautiful stuff
What a move
from Michael Ayres. And he's on the podium now, although Ivanov on his different strategy. And he sort of had to pit early because he knew Cizelle was just going to run away with it if he didn't try something. So this is an interesting call from NX27. Are Raceclutch going to respond, Will, or are they going to stay out?
Well, this is interesting, isn't it? You know, we've seen Ivanov go onto those medium tyres. Is he going to be able to make them count and make that gap come down? It's certainly something to happen for Cizelle here. He's probably going to have to react pretty soon, but potentially Ivanov could get held up here by Lianos and Ayres. Ayres, his teammate, who we've also seen coming through, Fletcher, has also pit onto the medium tyre just a few laps ago.
And here he comes, so Raceclutch had to respond immediately, and surely they're going back on the mediums, or they could try and run another set of hards to the end. It's going to be a nip and tuck, isn't it? And it's the mediums that come on.
Yep, same strategy. We've seen them mirror each other, but will that lap before be enough to get a little bit of an overcut for Ivanov? He's going to get a DRS advantage down this main straight. I'm sure he's going to be using overtake as well, as we see Cizelle trundle along the pit lane on the pit limiter. Here comes Ayres. He looks like he's going to make it out in time. Ayres goes to the outside. We've got Ivanov just in the background, and it's going to be a little bit of a sandwich here for Ayres, fighting between the two race leaders.
Yeah, so this didn't quite work out as well as NX27 would have hoped, but they have at least closed the gap to Christophe Cizelle then. And I didn't realise Cizelle was going to make his World Championship debut. Also coming into the pit says Oldenmenger, who's gone onto the softs, interestingly. I wonder if he can get those to run to the end, or at least until he needs to pit for another set of softs, inevitably. We're also seeing a couple of others come in as well. Book out to some. Yeah, here we go. Look at the way this is holding up. Ivanov here, Will.
Yeah, no,
up the inside he goes.
And he's got that move done, but he's crucially dropped out of that second round. And second race gap, I should say. Hopefully, look, not very happy, little wiggle of the steering wheel. That's the international sign in sim racing for you held me up. That could have cost him the win here today if he can't break that 0.2 of a second gap, 0.3 of a second gap, and get back into that DRS area.
But Michael Ayres, he's running his own race. He's fighting with the likes of Oldenmenger and Lianos for that final spot on the podium. I think he's within his rights to keep track position ahead of Ivanov when they're fighting for a position like that. And Ayres, if he pits now, Ivanov's going to be very annoyed indeed, because he feels like he's been held up for no reason, effectively.
Oh. But just as you say it as well, it certainly would be the way that it goes. Ivanov is going to push as hard as he possibly can here.
He's not far outside the DRS range. At least not down the straight.
Far
anyway.
out. And it's, you know, he's going to get a little bit of that slipstream advantage still. Of course, slipstream heavily reduced in these new ground effect generation cars. A lot less aerodynamic downforce coming from those overbody wings, and a lot more coming from the floor, which is obviously a much lower drag. So, yeah, it looks like he's just on the edge, and we'll certainly see how this develops over the coming laps, as it could be crucial to who wins the race here today.
So it looks like Ayres is pit and come out just behind Joshua Hamilton, crucially, so that is going to hold him up a little bit. Oldenmenger on the softs. I wonder if he's really going to get to the end. I think the tyre, if you're getting to the end, it's got to be the medium, surely, for these last 11 laps or so.
I'd say that Oldenmenger's got a really good chance of getting to the end on those soft tyres, and I quite like it as a strategy call. You know, we've seen these mediums go as far as 18 laps. If you say it's half of that for a soft, we're on a lighter tank of fuel. The cars are going to be potentially 40, 50 kilograms lighter maybe at this stage. I'm not quite sure how much it will be, but certainly they're going to be lighter. Oldenmenger's on the soft tyre. Nice aggressive strategy as we watch Ayres make that move past Hamilton on those worn medium tyres. This could be quite important for Oldenmenger, and it could help him get this third place here today, as we see Hamilton lose another position to Lianos.
Well, Lianos couldn't afford to let Michael Ayres escape in front of him, because he's been jumped in the pit stops effectively by the valet driver, Joshua Hamilton. Just couldn't get out of the way quickly enough, but now we see 0.9 of a second Ivanov just outside the DRS range. This is where the pressure on Cizelle will be absolutely immense, and especially after that scare he had earlier with the monitor turning off. He knows any little thing that goes wrong, he could lose the win here. So he needs to keep everything steady. He needs to not make any mistakes. And Ivanov will be pushing like crazy and hope that something happens.
But this could be his downfall, right? So he's had to make this extra push now. He pitted earlier. He's had to push the tyres hard early on in the life cycle of them. It could have crucially took a few % off those tyres, which is going to cost him in his ultimate pace that he can achieve at the end of this race. And, you know, still not really solidly inside that DRS range. It could be the end of the race here in terms of him fighting for Cesel. But, you know, we've still got 10 laps to go, so a lot can happen.
Yeah, he did just set fastest lap of the race, 132.2, but only 2 tenths faster than Cesel, who set a 132.4. So that really shows how evenly matched it is. The win here is on a knife edge between these two, as it has been pretty much the entire race, to be honest. Frelick and Sevet staying out on the hards. They're pretty much the only ones to do so. So it is all change here in the strategy. I think everyone really expected that the race was going to play out like a Royal Blue clearly were expecting, that everyone would stay on the hards. But so many people have gambled on the mediums and the softs for this final stint, Will.
Yeah, and you know, if it was me, I'd definitely be jumping onto these softs for this final stint. It looks quite an aggressive strategy. I do like the look of it. Oldenmenger, of course, our front-running runner on these soft tyres, potentially bringing them in quite calmly, quite softly, not like overheating them straight away. And we've got a few people that have done that. You know, we've seen Zalagianis, who's gone onto the soft tyre, Hamilton, Tuscan, who I think has either took a new set of soft tyre or is continuing to be on the set that we saw on earlier. But definitely people to watch, as we could see them make some moves up through the field to get the respective positions that they're capable of in this race.
The Royal Blue have got to keep both drivers out now and hope that Sevet can just hold up Oldenmenger. Oldenmenger lapping 2 seconds a lot faster than the pair of them, I think. So Frelick here could maybe make this bizarre, what's turned out to bizarrely be the wrong strategy, work somehow by just staying out and hoping his teammate helps him keep track position. But meanwhile, Lianos and Ayres continue to squabble away a little bit too far back to really put the pressure on Oldenmenger at the present moment. But building the gap to Moynier and Zalagianis behind. Zalagianis, who's also gone on for the soft, so he's gone for the Oldenmenger strategy and hoping to make it work. And Zalagianis, who started the race so strong, has really lost a lot of ground since that first pit stop and has had to fight his way back through the field.
Certainly, you know, we did see him have quite a large drop through the field, and it certainly seemed like his race was unravelling. But on these soft tyres now, looking to consolidate a top 10 finish, certainly going to have a chance to make up some more ground here towards the later stage of this race, and certainly seems to be a decent recovery drive into what was a very hard second stint of this race. We're watching Lianos the battle with Ayres, who made I would say, a fantastic call on those mediums early on. You know, both those valet cars did a great job keeping those tyres alive, making progress through the field, and it's actually quite interesting to see how much of an advantage Ayres now has over Fletcher.
Yeah, seeing your advantages, Cesel has extended his to Ivanov to 2.2 seconds then, so well and truly out of DRS range, but not the case for Ayres, as Lianos has a think about diving up the inside of him in the Netrex and has to concede and back out there, which allows Ayres to escape on the run into turn 3 and 4. But yeah, this is the fascinating part of the race then, where we see whether the strategies work or not. The big loser, in my opinion, is we just see him make a move. Fletcher getting past Barbukov in the background, but he's lost so much time. Remember, he was ahead of Michael Ayres before letting him through, and it looks like maybe they both pit on the same lap, I think. So maybe Fletcher has lost out so much ground because he had to wait for his teammate or something like that, or maybe he was just undercut by those around him.
I'm not really sure what happened to Fletcher, to be honest. It's a bit of a mystery. I seem to recall him either losing that time earlier on, but perhaps through a spin or something that we didn't see, but I highly doubt it. And yeah, it certainly has unravelled for him a little bit here. He's still got time to recover.
Yeah, fastest first sector for Fletcher, but the fastest lap is 1:31.6 by Zalagianis, who is closing down on the back of Loic Moynier for 8th place, which is the battle just behind these two then.
Yeah, and he's still got time to recover a little bit of time to maybe get into the top 10, but certainly it was quite a surprise considering how well they fought through that field. And, you know, looking back at the front of the field, you know, we do see how Ivanov has maybe hit those tyres too hard initially, maybe overheated them, and is dropping quite a bit back now from Cesel, who looks to maybe take the maiden win of the season here at Bahrain International Circuit.
And he certainly had to overcome a lot of challenges to do it. Here comes Zalagianis up the inside. no defense at all given from Loic Moynier, perhaps playing the long game here. It is on the harder compound, hoping Zalagianis runs out of tyres later on. That's really the best hope for him now. Now Zalagianis is going to press on and try and catch Lianos, his former teammate, and then Michael Ayers ahead of him. So a top 6 in it here for Zalagianis.
Yep, and Olden Menga is closing that gap to the 2 Royal Blue racing cars. On those soft tyres, looks to certainly be managing them, I'd say. Wouldn't say he's catching at a blistering pace, especially considering the delta we'd imagine to be between the hard tyre, which is now quite old on the Royal Blue racing cars, and the relatively new Olden Menga soft tyre. So managing them, making sure he doesn't overheat them initially, get all that beautiful bit of wear gone straight away, making sure that he has enough tyre to make those moves and make them stick when he catches up to the back of these 2 cars.
Right, end of this lap, Frelick will have been on his tyres for 21 laps, Sevet for 22 laps. So they've been going very, very long on these hards. They've sort of, because they've been if they pit now, they would come out behind, so they've got to stay out, haven't they? And they've got to work together. Sevet thankfully getting the DRS from his teammate, which helps him a little bit in the battle with Olden Menga, but as long as Olden Menga keeps closing more than a second a lap, he has, with 6 laps remaining, got enough time to catch at least one of them, potentially both.
Well, we could see a little bit of strategical defending here once Olden Menga will catch, we presume to happen. It certainly would be in his favour, and very surprising if not. But you've also got to think from the perspective as, yes, you don't want to lose a podium for these Royal Blue racing cars, but if you look at the gap between Olden Menga and Errors behind, that's another further 8 seconds, and you would certainly say that a P4 and a P5 for the Royal Blue Racing would be a good start to the season. Perhaps we'll see them take the team championship lead, but I'm not quite sure on how the points would work there. But it would certainly be a very, very good start for those cars here today.
They are the reigning teams champions, of course, Royal Blue Racing, and they finished, I think, top 2 in the championship last year with Conso Prosciutto and Chikapega Lalu. And of course, they had Matthew Williams, who won 4 races in a row before being promoted to the World Championship, where he then finished 2nd in a thrilling fight with world champion Colin Spork. He nearly denied Sport the title, actually, because Alex Siebel in 3rd nearly got enough points to just about hold on to that lead, but Sport clawed it back in the final race in that thrilling round in Sao Paulo. But now we turn our attention to pro here. It's former World Championship driver Olden Menga, well and truly inching closer and closer to DRS range, as Zalagianis now inches closer towards DRS range of Lianos. And you've got to manage these sides. You've got to manage that energy deployment of electrical power in these hybrid power units to its absolute maximum, as Zazel has done pretty much all race. And looking like Ivanov has got no response as he continues to lose time behind. Race clutch car just looking absolutely almost on rails, but don't let that fool you. He's been driving incredibly hard to hold on to this lead. Only 5 laps now separate him from his first win of the season.
We do get some information in chat about Sergio Fletcher, who apparently has received a drive-through, which would certainly align with why he'd lost that sort of amount of time of around about 15 seconds. So that drive-through, not optimal, obviously not, but I think the pace that he showed at the start of this race will certainly be a positive going into the rest of the season, because that strategy, however they've set up that Valley eSports car, looks to be very, very kind on its tyres, especially.
And Josh Hamilton makes a mistake, behind while fighting with Stoyan Barbakov, and that allows Nizio, who we saw being passed by Hamilton early on. Hamilton trying to make ground on the soft tyres, pushing too hard, locking up, going off track, and falling down to 14th.
Yeah, and that's obviously not optimal for Hamilton. Hopefully our chat will not be too upset by that, but there's still a little bit of time left to get the time back for Hamilton. And here we see Olden Menga, who has closed up nicely to the back of a lot of deployment going on. DRS wide open, massive speed advantage going down the straightaway as we start off lap 42. Down the inside, and looks to be a relatively simple pass for Olden Menga, and it only is a matter of time before he has an attack on Frelick.
It's like Sevet was standing still there, almost. Towards the end, I saw he ran out of electrical energy, or was saving it for later on, potentially, to fight with Frelick. And so he just had to cover off Patrick Sevet. But now, Simon Frelick, he's absolutely defenseless now. He's not even got his teammate to help him out here. Olden Menga, who's held onto that podium for so long, has only got 4 laps in which to pass Simon Frelick. So Frelick has got to hope that the softs just fall off a cliff here. and already he's struggling with those hards. Like you said, over 22 laps now he's been on them, and they're not at their best.
Yeah, and I really don't see that happening for Oldenburger. I think he was very sensible in the way that he used those soft tires. Potentially the commentator's curse is coming in here, but you know, it is very easy to slip up the rear tires of these very, very powerful V6 hybrid engines. And I think Oldenburger's been smart here with the tire choice and with the way that he's used them. And I would certainly expect to see him passing Frelick this time by as we start lap number 4.
Here we go then. He's just got to hope that Sevet can stay in the DRS range, but I think there's not enough life in those tyres for him to really be a factor. Oldenburger shows his notes, lets Simon Frelick know that he's there, and I think Frelick wildly aware that the burst car is bearing down on him. Here he comes, DRS wide open, and Frelick is stuck on the outside, tries to tuck in for a little bit of slipstream, but he can't counterattack surely unless he makes a almost suicidal dive into the first corner, and indeed he does not. Kevin Morville, meanwhile, pits in the background after a difficult race for him. He wants to go on the soft tyres as well. So he's, again, another drive to go for the Oldenburger strategy, along with Zalagianis, who is through on Lianos, by the way, and Joshua Hamilton, who is through on Barbikov and Nizio, who we saw him going off track and losing position to earlier on.
Why not? You know, why not go on the soft tyre for a little bit of fun, nice high grip situation, low fuel, have a few fun laps to end off your race and get some experience for the next one. We're seeing kind of the conclusion here. I'm certainly looking towards some of our gaps as we're watching Hamilton attack again on Barbikov, who's changed off those hard tyres finally. And it's certainly to think that we might see a move down here into turn number 4 in the slipstream. Not gaining too much, clearly not got much electrical deploy around the outside goes Hamilton. Can he keep it on the track? Can he get the traction as we go into turn number 5, 6 and 7 and through goes Hamilton. What a move.
Is that 3 or 4 times he's passed Barbikov in this race now? Certainly not the easiest race for him, but he's put on quite the show. Nizio as well, trying to get involved, but just running out of room. Barbikov desperate not to lose another position then in these final few laps. But Joshua Hamilton now is going to take a very, very well-earned 12th place, it looks, now that he's breaking away from Stoyan Barbikov. Meanwhile, I think Sevet and Frelick should have just enough pace to hold off Michael Ayres behind, who I don't think is catching quickly enough for the final 3 laps yet. 1:32.7, 1:33.6 from Sevet, and 1:33.3 from Frelick then. So the delta isn't quite enough. It's only about half a second, and they are a little bit too far back to challenge. So Zalagianis behind might even make a move on Ayres before this is out.
Potentially, and one thing I like to look at here is we can see how strong the DRS advantage is. Potentially Oldenburger's tyres are going off slightly here at the end, but it would certainly seem like the DRS advantage that Frelick is able to keep hold of here, as he just about stays in that kind of area, is able to keep him on the back of Oldenburger, which is obviously elevating his pace a little bit. And that's helping out greatly as we watch him come round on these final 3 laps of the race. And that could be crucial as we see Sevet go wide. That could make him vulnerable to the cars behind as we...
That's Morville lap down.
So it is no worry for the time being for Sevet. Still could, you never know, those tyres going off in the final few laps could allow Ayres to catch up. It certainly would be against the odds, but don't count it out from happening here in FSR.
The more pressure you put on someone, the more likely it is they will make a mistake, and that is what Simon Frelick is hoping. But Oldenburger, he's to use a pun, an old hand at this. He's been in Pro before, he's been in the World Championship before, he's seen it all, done it all, and it looks like he's doing just enough to hold on to that pony, and indeed he swerves to try and break the toe from Simon Frelick, who, like you say, with that DRS very quick down the straight, but is he going to run out of room, run out of laps to dive on at the inside at turn 1? Oldenburger holds him off and just gets his braking done in time. But the burst car suddenly looking a bit more vulnerable than he did a few laps ago.
Definitely, I would say that, I didn't quite expect this to happen, but it certainly would seem that Oldenburger's podium that I thought may have been quite in the back at this point is under threat from Frelick here. Looking like he's losing a little bit of traction, especially out of the traction zones coming through the slower speed corners. We know a lot of these drivers are running the bias quite far backwards, tending to lock the rears rather than the fronts to get a bit of rotation in. Yeah, definitely could be vulnerable here, especially if Frelick is saving some of that electrical energy.
Great battle near the back, by the way, between Chatsapantelis, Howard, and Tucson, who are all right together and have been swapping positions like crazy. We're not seeing a whole lot of it on the stream, but keep your eyes on them as they cross the line, because I have a feeling Liam Howard might try and make a last-ditch attempt to pass his Netrex stablemate in that NX27 car. But anyway, Oldenmenger continues to fend off Simon Frelick, of course. Both of them very, very experienced, very, very talented drivers. And there is that battle with, is that Howard all over the back of Chatsapantelis, who on those hards that are not performing at their best. He's been on them about, only about 10 laps though. And here we go, round the outside goes the British driver, but Howard is denied, and Chatsapantelis is keeping it on the apex there, giving Howard nowhere to go.
That was very smart from Chatsapantelis. Slowed the car down nicely, made sure he didn't outbrake himself, kept the car in a position where it would cause Howard to have to make quite an aggressive move with the steering wheel and the car to actually be able to get that overcut. So very nice.
And that's Frelick through on Oldenmenger. Sorry, Will. But Frelick uses the DRS to go up the inside as we go on to the final lap. So that is a crucial move. Oldenmenger's tyres did not have enough life in them, and Frelick on the hards. It looks like Royal Blue, against all odds, have got this strategy to work for them, and Burst are denied that podium.
You certainly wouldn't have expected it, but as we were watching that other battle, like you say, Frelick made advantage of saving a bit of that electrical energy, and that DRS, and Oldenmenger looks like he's out of it. Those tyres are certainly hit a bit of a cliff here at the end of this race, and it would look like Frelick, against all odds, is going to get the podium here.
You never ever discount Simon Frelick, because you give him half a chance, he will go through, and Oldenmenger put up a valiant fight but could not quite hold on. Meanwhile, up front, we've only got a few corners to go before Zizelle is going to cross the line. In fact, one corner. Here we go. Here comes the race clutch driver. It's been an immaculate debut. Even with the monitor switching off, nothing could stop him today. 8 seconds up the road from Victor Ivanov. Christoph Zizelle wins in Bahrain. The first round of the 2023 Pro Championship goes to race clutch. And Ivanov will have to settle after a brilliant performance nonetheless for second best.
It looks like Frelick is going to take that podium against all odds on those aging hard tyres as Oldenmenger puts up a valiant fight. But Frelick will be the last step of your podium, and Oldenmenger claims 4th position with Servet, Erez and Zyogiannis behind.
Yeah, Oldenmenger will be ruining not going to mediums for that final stint, I think, because he probably would have held on if he'd done that. It might take another lap to catch up, perhaps. Here is the battle between Nitsio Barbukov and Mancini, who's catching Nitsio ever so slightly. I think it's a little bit too late for a move to happen here. So these guys, Mancini, I think in 15, the final point's probably going to go to Vagapop down in 20th. So all the drivers, pretty much everyone apart from Morville is going to score points, I think. But here are the two net races of Leonov and Chatsapantelis, and you've got a feel for Ivan Leonov because he started this race so strongly and has just fallen back through the pack. Their car has just eaten through its tyres. It's not looked too healthy, has it?
And that's where you've got to think about maybe the setup compromise. Maybe they didn't quite get the race setup working for them as well as they could. But certainly, you know, it's all to learn of.
Too late there for Chatsapantelis to pass for 16th position. But certainly, he didn't give up, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's one of these things, you know, you take every race as a learning opportunity to think about how you can develop further on into the season, and we saw an incredibly good race here today for your Pro Championship in FSR, and it's certainly a great opener for the World Championship race to come later this evening.
Absolutely will. Very much looking forward to that. It's going to be a superb contest. But there we go. Zizelle, he's going to be in action in that World Championship race for Race Clutch. Not sure if he's filling in for Panzer or Latiou, but it's annoying for my... It's Panzer. Okay. So we are going to see Zizelle and Tom Latiou in action in those red Race Clutch cars. But it's annoying for me because I did my season preview and we've had 3 driver changes already since I did that. So it's already out of date. But still helpful for 98% of the field, I think. Oh, as the Royal Blue of Frelick drifts into the garage there, ending in style, I think. A very well-earned podium there for a very talented driver there who made a great impression for Royal Blue and helps their title defense off to a great start.
Yes, and that would be it for your pros race. And here is the standings after 46 laps of racing. Christophe Sauvel takes the win by over 5 seconds. A very dominant display for Race Clutch in that beautiful red livery car. Ivanov lost the DRS in that second phase and wasn't quite able to challenge Sauvel, but still a strong showing for the title contender last season. Frelick getting onto the podium on the last lap with a great move past Oldenmenger, who might rue his tyre choice decisions later in the race. Savet was in the top 5 with Erez on that fantastic medium strategy in the middle of the race. Lologianis, Leonos, Munir and Boyko rounding out your top 10. Got into the remaining order here. We got Fletcher, who unfortunately got that drive through, but did show some strong pace and will certainly be encouraging for the rest of the season. Joshua Hamilton, a fan favourite in the chat, making some fantastic moves, especially that one round the outside into turn number 4. Barbakov, Nizio, Mancini, Leonov, Chansey Pantelis, who we saw coming down there, and as we work towards the back, you've got Morville, who made that late stop, Augustus Lane, who saw have an unfortunate DNF, but a strong start, and Lehout rounding out your top 23.
Well, I guess we'll be back in action then for the Spanish Grand Prix in the Pro Championship at Barcelona on the 11th of June. But we're not done tonight yet, are we, Will? Because we still got that World Championship in about 45 minutes' time. It will get underway, our first round of the season with all those big names, Spork, Briliak, and Simoncic, 3 world champions looking to battle it out with all the 6 race winners and the 7 new rookies, I think, taking part for the first time, or might be 8 now if we count our winner, Sauvel, today, to moving up. So he's got some good experience under his belt already. But wow, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to call a winner then in the World Championship later on.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic race, and I think this was a very, very good start, or middle of our evening, we should say, to see some of those expert pro drivers in this rFactor platform in the Formula cars, see them across many, many championships, and I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic season here at FSR.
Well, anyway, with that said then, my thanks to you, Will Chadwick, for commentating with me. My thanks to all the broadcast team, including, of course, Teun Snepvangers and Cass Rietveld, controlling the cameras and the broadcast. Thanks to our sponsor, VCO, for supporting us. And thanks to you, of course, for watching. The World Championship's still to come, but it is Christophe Sauvel who takes first blood for Race Clutch here in the Pro Championship at Bahrain. Bye for now.